Zoom doesn't, oh, there we go. Yay. Okay,
Yay.
speaking of person, yay, now I'm recording, which is a big mistake making me responsible for this. So
I encourage you to make big mistakes because I'm too old.
no one's too old to make big mistakes, right?
Right.
That's the theme of
This
our
is true.
first podcast, that nobody's too old to make mistakes.
Yeah, that's what it is. No, or too young.
Oh yeah, everyone is just the right age to make the exact mistake that they're making.
All the mistakes, big and small, that you're making are just perfect for you.
I like that. I also appreciate the fact that my cats have not yet started scratching at the door. So I do
Oh, good.
apologize if I have to go holler at some cats for ruining my deposit, but
I'm going to refrain from making any comments about you hollering at some.
I'm too old for that. Those are my college days. I don't holler
Okay.
for it anymore.
Okay, so we're going to introduce ourselves, even though this is like Zooby Tube or Zooby
I feel
Tubey.
very honored to be, am I the first guest on ZubiTube?
Yeah, you are the first guest on
Ah,
Zooby.
started from the bottom, now we're here. I love it.
Yeah. Started from the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Teresa Zube. I am a astrologer slash tarot reader slash somebody with a big fucking mouth. And I will let Chelsea introduce herself and how we know each other while
Yeah.
I drink from my cat person mug.
Yeah. Okay. So I definitely now feel really bad for not getting the really sassy mug that I saw at Target the other day. It's very drunk.
Damn.
I didn't get it, but these are just my plain mugs. I'll get a better mug for the next pod.
Please do, because I think that that's going to have to be a signature. Is
I like it.
Which mug are you sporting today?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I'm Chelsea. I also have a big fucking mouth, but not an astrologer. Just a student of life, and do of course find it fascinating, but don't have quite the same aptitude and natural calling for it as Zuby does. But always here to chat about crazy stuff. And we met. I was trying to figure out what the year would have been. 97.
So,
I was like 7 years old.
yeah, 2002.
Oh, okay. So later than that. Okay, that's fair.
Yeah,
So I was
2002.
10 then.
You were 10.
That doesn't sound right.
Maybe it was 2. Yeah, because I started working for your mom in May of 2002. So it was very early because like straight away she was like, "Do you babysit?"
Yeah,
Like,
desperate
yeah.
to get rid of her children. Okay, so then, so if it was May of 2002, then I was 9 technically, soon to be 10.
Yeah.
Which makes me feel even worse for was it the first time that you watched us that I threw the fit, or was that later in the game?
That was a little bit later. That was when I was responsible for you and your sister's asses all weekend.
Oh.
And it was like a 4-day weekend, I think. And I was really traumatized because when you're 24, 25 and don't have kids, first of all, picking kids up from school is terrifying because parents will fucking run you over if you don't know where you're going. No, it was so scary. And your mom was my new boss, and I was like, okay. And that's when we had our fun ice skating rink experience.
Well,
I love you.
I turned out okay. Here we are.
You turned out amazing.
Not 20 years, but yeah, almost 20 years later.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you have your Saturn return?
I'm gonna be.
Did you have your Saturn return?
I don't. You'd have to tell me.
I do it.
This is the thing.
I'll look when we're done. Yeah, I do it.
It feels
by 30. Anyway.
Yeah, because I'm coming up on 30 here soon. So.
Yeah. So well, you might be in that now. I'll double check.
That would feel all right. I mean, I guess, okay, so that's the thing that we're going to do is kind of how we got here, right? So I definitely feel like, I mean, your influence has been so integral to where I am now. I mean, not to discount other people in my life or my own work that I've put in, but I genuinely think that experience, even, you know, obviously when we met, you were also young, and hadn't quite figured out everything yet. But I think that there's this like really common tie between us of people who are called to break generational habits, and I think people who are called to kind of be weird and be a little bit different, certainly from the rest of our family. And and I also feel like you were one of the first adults that I was safe around. And that's like safe, not just physically, but safe to be myself, safe to just be an extra. Yeah. And
your weirdo.
Yeah, like my weirdo broken self. And it's been, I think the universe, God, Larry, whatever you want to call it, has really put so many, I think we're also both very stubborn and kind of had to have
a little,
just a little, which, you know, serves us well. But I think it also has forced really dramatic circumstances in our life to create change. And I think that that's really cool that now we're also both learning in a more gentle, loving, joyful, pleasurable way, rather than, in my case, significant bodily harm and physical pain. So
yeah, the problem is I think that we were somewhat on the same like timeline, and I didn't learn some of that stuff until I was like 42. But we're going to just pretend it's because it's harder for me because the world was not as spiritual when I was into that stuff.
That's true. But also, you know, I think also your kiddos are a huge catalyst for you too, right? I mean, you're doing these things, you know, you say at 42, but if you had done them at 25, would your kids be who they are, and who would they have learned the same thing? Because that's been my realization and real appreciation for my family dynamic, has been that humans learn through contrast. And I had to have the family dynamics that I had in order to better serve my future and the people around me's future. And you know, it's all in, like, divine timing sucks major ass and we all hate it, and it's never on our time, but it is the right.
But it's always perfect.
Yeah. And accepting that too has been interesting, because, like, you know, the family dynamic that I had obviously pushed me to grow into the person I am. The physical harm that I've been through has put me in situations that have pushed me to grow and learn, or in the most recent case, slow down, because I was ignoring so much. And I think it's been a really beautiful experience to find acceptance and slowing down in that timeline, which there's still frustration, but
like you said, we learn through contrast. I mean, and that's kind of the unfortunate thing is, how do we know what we want if we experience what we don't, if we don't experience what we don't want, you know? Yeah. How do you, okay, so I kind of want you to share a little bit about, because something that I had my astrology report done by this guy, and he said that part of my destiny or whatever is to help people figure out how what their psychic powers are, right? Because being psychic is not as woo-woo as it sounds, you know what I mean? Like, it's not for everybody seeing things or whatever. It's intuition, it's everything. But you do have some curious psychic experiences. Do you mind sharing?
Yeah, no, I think, and also, again, it's been really interesting as an adult finding therapy and community of people who want to discuss this and explore this, not just from, like we say, the woo side, but also from a very logical, scientific side where it's actually been explained to me. But so ever since I can remember, ever since I was very young, I've always been essentially face blind, so I don't actually recognize people's faces. I see people in colors. And I still to this day have not put a value judgment on those colors. I have not assigned a meaning to those colors. I've had other people ask me, oh, are you seeing people's auras? I don't know. I personally don't care. Like, I don't care why or what it means. It's just something that I have used to navigate the world. And then I've also been really lucky to have extremely powerful, really moving, still experiences I can't explain with ancestors, with dead people. Not like, you know, I see dead people, but like I see dead people.
Right.
So those are kind of the two main ones. Again, interestingly enough, I tried to express this as a child. I would tell my mom, like, that tree is sad, or so-and-so has no friends, because part of seeing dead people is kind of like seeing ancestors, and everybody has them.
Right.
Well, not everybody, but it's strange when someone doesn't. And I tried to explain these things, you know, I tried to explain me being sad in the context of other people being sad. And it just was like brushed off as childhood fantasy. I was told it was really strange for me to be so old and still have these imaginary friends that I was talking to. And it got kind of scary. So I repressed it really, really hard. The colors never went away, but I was able to kind of stop seeing people who weren't on this earth anymore, until recently, where that's been really like kind of reawakened and encouraged. And I've just been told, like, you know, just don't question it, just see what happens if you allow it to happen. And I've had some really moving conversations and experiences with in particular some people on so my biological mother's maternal mother's my maternal grandmother, and my paternal grandfather, whom I actually never met when he was alive. So it's been really interesting hearing other people's stories and versions of him, but not having experienced him as an ego-guided human, and only experiencing him as a soul that has moved on into whatever is next. So that's been weird but cool.
But cool. Do you have any, had your dad talked about him, or did you have any preconceived concept of him?
Yeah, actually, very minimal. So when he was a human, when he was around, he was an extremely hurtful person. Very, very abusive, extremely mentally ill. This was, of course, back in the 60s when, you know, they put people literally in insane asylums instead of giving them medication, treatment, whatever. Health. Yeah, health. And which, again, your mental health does never makes it okay to harm anybody else.
Right.
But it is, you know, a factor in that. And he was a dangerous human to be around. And that's been really tough, because as part of my soul guide team, he's gentle and remorseful and inquisitive and very helpful. So it's really hard to, well, it's actually been a blessing to balance these two, because then on my mother's side, when her mother died, I had experienced that person as being very hurtful. I had experienced my maternal grandmother being really quite painful in my, you know, in my young adult years and adult years. And so then to have a conversation with her where I'm like, I don't want to talk to you. You were hurtful. And then her counter being, well, I don't have that ego anymore. I was fulfilling a soul contract. And me being like, yeah, but I already have this preconceived notion of you. So it's been really interesting to have this really beautiful contrast between my paternal grandfather, who intellectually I understand hurt people, but I've never experienced that way to be an actually helpful guiding presence in my spirit team. And then this other person who was contentious and painful to me as a human, attempting to be a soul guide. And so it's an ongoing conversation we're having.
That's kind of a mind fuck.
Yeah.
That's kind of a mind fuck. But, you know, I mean, you're growing through it, and that's the whole point of it. I feel, you know, I feel like.
Yeah, and I think it's really important too, like you talked about these, like you helping people find their gifts. I also really want to make it clear to anybody who's watched through this, I actually firmly believe that we all have this ability. We all have some sort of, I shy away. I would love to find a different word than psychic ability, because it does turn so many people off. And really what it is scientifically, it's just proven that we have these energetic fields, and the earth has an energetic field, not just, you know, the magnetic field, but also like, and I would love to pull this study up someday and go deeper into it. But there's a research institute that studies the energy of the world, and before major events, like for example 9/11, the day before 9/11, the whole energy just dropped. And it's not necessarily like a great predictor, although I think it would be interesting to use that. I'm just saying that as humans, and I think what we've lost in our modern world is our connection to earth, is our connection to universe, is our connection to these innate abilities that we all have. So I don't think I'm special. I don't think what I do is crazy. I just think I just think other people don't know that they can do it.
Right. Well, and it's like you said when you were a kid, I'm surprised that you kept the color thing. That's really interesting to me. And there's a question I want to get to you, but I think we repress it. You know what I mean? When I was in college, I started reading tarot, and I was obsessed with astrology. And then it was like, when college was over, it was like, okay, now you do real life. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And I know that there have always been people who've been on the fringe or whatever, but I didn't have the courage at that time to do anything like that, you know?
Yeah.
The other question I had for you, so see, I don't really see things. I know things, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and I doubt it, you know, but I talked to a spiritual teacher one time, and they were like, no, that's like claircognizance, clairsentience. And it's weird to me how it comes to be. So like, for example, most of the time it happens when I'm in meditation, although sometimes it'll be, you know, at other random times. It's just a sense, and it comes in here, that it's like words are like fully popped into my head, right? And then I don't know if this is what people mean when they say the mind's eye, but I just know an image, right?
Yeah.
And when it's my ego, because especially early on in meditation, I would be like, ooh, is that something? I think that's something. I think there's something there. And like, that's the mind chatter. And I would know that wasn't it. I'd be searching. But now it's like kind of now that I've gotten down the habit of being able to quiet my mind, it just comes. And it's usually nothing I was looking for. You know what I mean? And I just know it's there, and I question it even. I'm like, is this for real? And then I'm like, well, yeah, it is for real, because I can tell I'm not making it up, you know. But it's very, for me at least, and maybe it's because I'm older or just, you know, because people don't talk about this, it's a really insecure thing for me, because I'm like, you know, is that real? But you know, like I have Larry, and Larry was someone that I saw in a meditation when I was at rehab, and that we were listening to these ocean waves things, and that you know, I closed my eyes and I just had this vision of me sitting on a rock and watching the ocean, and this dude came up and sat next to me and didn't say a word for weeks, because, you know, I was like, what is his deal? Whatever, I'm just gonna sit on my fucking rock, because I was a pissed off detoxing, you know, woman. And anyway, and then eventually he started talking to me, and like, he's still around, and he's not around as much. Like I do feel like our spirit team or whatever, some come and go, and some are more important at sometimes than others. And anyway, so it's the experience of the psychicness and how it's like different for everyone. And how do you think like we can encourage people to experience that?
Well, I think you really touched on it. At least for me, the biggest part is the non-attachment, right? And
Yeah,
that's really, really hard because
it's
our brains are so incredible at coming up with stuff. Like that's what they're built to do. We are meant to create things. So for me, I agree. The meditation is really helpful. But I also have kind of found it, at least where I'm at, and I am actively trying to cultivate my ability to do this. But I just don't. I'm a person that's really built on routine. When my routine
right.
falls apart, I fall apart. I eat the same things every day, wake up at the same time, do the same things. Like that's how I stay sane.
Right.
So when I deviate from that, um, I used to stop myself from deviating because that would make me uncomfortable. I actually diagnosed OCD. And it's a story for another time where it doesn't really quite fit. But now I just don't question it. So if I drive a different way, I'm like, I guess this is the way we're going to work today. I don't really know why. And then
Right.
9 times out of 10, it'll come out, there was an accident there, or
Mm-hmm.
there was a roadblock, or, it could really be anything. But I, like most recently, didn't, again, because I eat the same things every day, didn't buy a product that I normally buy and was like, that's weird. I wonder why I'm not grabbing that. And then it turns out there was a recall. Like, so for me, my process as of right now is just not questioning my deviations because I am so predictable at pretty much any time of the day. People can tell you where I'm at and what I'm doing. So anytime I all of a sudden don't feel like doing something like that, I just have stopped questioning it and I've started allowing it. And I just, yeah, I do wonder again. So like maybe one example of this is, so my most recent big pain thing that really pushed me into this recovery was I was, you know this obviously, but I was run over by a car as a pedestrian. And what really emotionally made me struggle with that is that I shouldn't have been there. I had no reason to be on that street where I was at the time. I was actually there as a deviation to my habits.
Wow.
And it really, that messed me up, and it really pushed me even further into the habits. Because I was like, well, if I just hadn't done that, then I wouldn't have been hit by a car and everything would be fine. Of course, nothing was going right in my life anyway, but I think that it's been a really healing process to recognize deviations from habits as healthy, intentional blessings.
And here, okay, ready. Here's the thing though, where there is sort of divine timing and divine intervention, right?
Yeah.
Because without the experience of having been hit by the car, you wouldn't do you think that had some, and I'm going somewhere here with my experience, but do you think that had some motivating factors in kind of your awakening?
If I
Or
hadn't been hit by the car, I probably wouldn't be alive today. It certainly saved my life. Maybe not literally, I don't know. At the time I was suicidal.
right.
I had an eating disorder. I was under 90 pounds, which, I'm only 4'10", but that's still too little.
Yeah.
I had suicidal ideation. Had no real strong ties to anybody. I would hesitate to say I had no friends because I don't want my friends to maybe stumble upon this and be like, hey, I was there. And it's like, yes, I had people there, but I was not interacting with them in an authentic, real way. I was just miserable. I was really ready to end it all. And the car accident did the major thing that I tell people is that it made me ask for help. I didn't have a choice. I couldn't, walk or talk, or after some surgeries, I couldn't wipe my own ass. I couldn't go to the bathroom by myself. I couldn't, it forced me to be watched, and it forced me to be cared for, in which are two positions that I was extremely uncomfortable with. And I mean, I don't know what else could have happened, but I needed a dramatic intervention at the time. It also pushed me into sobriety. It was this weird, double-edged sword, catch-22. I was on so many painkillers from surgeries and blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, essentially, I had people around me, namely my dad and my stepmom, who were taking care of me, who were responsible for me living, and were like, you need help. And it really, eventually I moved out again, but it really put things into perspective. Like I part of me wants to think I almost chose to live. I was unconscious for 5 minutes, which long run isn't that bad, but any loss of unconsciousness, any doctor will tell you, is not ideal.
It's not ideal.
Yeah, it's not great for the brain, especially somebody with previously 8 diagnosed concussions. Lord knows how many others that weren't diagnosed. It was a beautiful experience because people really gathered around me to help me through the trial process, to help me through the healing process. And it really proved that I wasn't alone. And I think we all, every human deserves that chance to realize that they're not in this awful, terrible, confusing, beautiful rat race that we call life alone.
Yeah. No, it's, yeah. And the reason I asked is because, you weren't supposed to walk that way that day, and you weren't supposed to. So it's almost like, were you getting a message or something from your guides to kind of fuck up your life, because just to get you on that fucking fast track?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because, okay, so I also believe in the law of attraction. And when I was doing my downward spiral thing, I, like, everything that I lost made sense. But the one thing that put me over the edge, that never really made sense to me, was that out of, like, I don't know, 40 to 60 houses, I'm really bad at counting large quantities of things. My one 4-year-old house had a loose pipe that burst and flooded it. It was on the second floor. I mean, it was the worst case scenario of worst case scenarios. But, like, it happened, and I was always worried about losing my house. And, like, and for no reason. I mean, I made enough money to pay the mortgage. But I was always, and, like, and for some reason in the back of my head, I knew when that happened, I was like, this is it. Like, this is the last of, like, my cookie crumbling, And I also really resonated with what you said about needing to be taken care of and needing someone to, I mean, I could wipe my own ass, but, oh, do I want to tell a secret here? I'm going to share it.
It's your podcast, man.
I was in rehab, and I was so fucking sick. I mean, I was really sick, like drenched in sweat and everything.
Yeah.
And there was a fire alarm in the middle of the night, and I got up, and I had fucking shit myself.
Yeah.
I mean, but my body was probably detoxing or whatever, and I probably should have been in the infirmary, but I survived. And I remember I could not get the smell of shit out of my room for, like, days. Anyway, it was just, but but it was a place where I could just literally finally fall apart, because that's what I'd been waiting to do my whole life. And maybe that wasn't the same for you, but
No, I fully agree. No, I'm totally with you. And actually, my complete and utter collapse actually did come later. I was just white knuckling it through, but no, I agree. I think it's so humbling, and I really think we all need to have a humbling experience, because that's when you really get into the nitty gritty of what it is to be a human, you know?
Yes.
Because, you know, something that my stepmom always tells me, she's got that, is it a psalm? It's something in the Bible thing. Like,
Yep.
for every season, for every time there is a season, you know, that one where,
yeah.
And she's like, we leave the same way we come in, which is naked, crying, and completely, you know, needing assistance. And that's the cycle of life, and there's no shame in it. That's normal. And, you know, and that's what I always, you know, I would lament to my dad and my stepmom, like, you've done so much for me. How can I ever repay you? And she's like, you know, maybe someday you'll have to wipe my ass.
Right. I mean, there, you know, and then there's you and I who were pretty all right with wiping people's asses.
Yeah,
I mean,
we do that for a living right now anyways.
Exactly. Like when I was a caregiver, it was the grumpy old, like, formerly powerful males that I was always their favorite, because there's no hero in me. There's no bossy person in me. If I'm wiping your ass and you know, the back of your balls, like, I'm not, whatever, dude.
Yeah, well,
Like,
there's
you're,
a dignity. And
yes.
this is why I really am enjoying my home care work, and just kind of getting into it in general, is that there's, you know, I felt when I was in the hospital that I was a task to be completed a lot of the times for my nurses. And I get it, when you have, you know, 100 patients, maybe you just need to get through it. But the questions would be directed at my parents, and I'm like, I can answer yes or no questions. Like, I could nod, you know, I can, you know, and at the time, especially after the car accident, I was an adult, and I was like, you know, and so that's, I think that there's a real gift in bringing dignity to these situations too, that is unfortunately lost sometimes, but I find to be the best part of caring for people, is just allowing them to be a human being that happens to need assistance, but that doesn't make them less intelligent, that doesn't make them less strong, that doesn't make them less deserving of respect or whatever. I'm an equal to them who just happens to have hands that work differently.
Yeah. I love it. I don't know, how long has it been? I don't want to make the first episode too long. And
Oh, that's a great question. I don't know. It is 5:13. I don't know.
Yeah, Zeke is going to be home soon anyway. But I have been wanting to do some sort of podcast, interviewing, whatever kind of thing for, like, probably over a year.
Yeah, the next episode is going to be on forgiveness. We're going to talk about our opinions on forgiveness, because I really think that we've got some different ones, and I would love to hack into our opinions on how forgiveness works next.
Yes, I would love that. Also, if anybody would like to be interviewed by me, or would like to do a Zooby Tooby, I don't even know the terminology, but this is just humans shooting the shit, being vulnerable, and, like, talking about stuff.
Sober humans. It's drunk history without, because I always wanted to do it. You know, now we're all old and sober, and, you know, that's a whole other story. But I always wanted to do, you know, there's Drunk History, which is one of my favorite TV shows. But I wanted to do, like, high universe thoughts or something. But
oh my god! So, like, when you're stoned or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
that would be hilarious. Like, or well, now they do microdosing. Isn't mushrooms legal?
Yeah, you know, maybe that's what we should do. We should just go to the rainforest. I really think that we should just do all the LSD together.
Some live ayahuasca.
Yeah.
No, that would probably not be a good idea. But anyway, that was really funny. Well, thank you, folks, for listening. If you're here at the end with us, and I'm really glad to share this with you, Chelsea, my vicarious sort of
third
daughter.
Yeah.
And I trample on no toes in saying that. Like, I have multiple mothers.
Yeah. I don't think anybody in my life would be upset by me calling you a surrogate mother.
Okay.
And if they are, they can stuff it, because that's how I feel about you. So,
well, I love you.
I love you. All right. So next time we'll come up with a snappy outro. We'll get you a song.
I know. I need your tech help, girl.
It's minimal, but you've got it. All right. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.